right now I am walking from Ikebukuro, Sunshine City, to Otsuka, and I figured this would be a good time because I have to walk anyway to do a walk and talk video and talk to you guys about tips that I have that you might not have thought of while you're planning for Japan. If you don't know me, hi, my name's Kira. I've lived in Japan for 5 years. I've been pretty much all over the nation by now, and sometimes planning a Japan trip can be really stressful. You guys will hear the train in the background. I'm right next to the train tracks. Sometimes planning a trip to Japan can be really stressful, and so hopefully these tips will help you out. So let's see, where am I actually gonna go? This is a walk and talk, so we're gonna figure out where we're going. So my first tip is weekdays. Do not do what you want to do the most on the weekends, because the weekends in Tokyo, even when borders weren't open, even now, it's just so crowded everywhere. Let me give an example, a story. So on a Saturday, I went to the Pokemon Center in Yokohama. And it was so busy that day. It was like a Saturday or a Sunday. And we actually planned to go to the Pokemon Center, and then we could not get in because on that day they required reservations. You had to get to the Pokemon Center early enough to grab like a waiting ticket, and then sometimes you'd grab a ticket and you'd still have to like wait for 3 hours just to get in. So that's just an example of what can happen. You're wasting your time, wasting your day. If you're here in Japan for a week, why not go on a weekday instead of a weekend? I just came out of Ikebukuro, Sunshine City, and it's Friday, and it was so empty. And I was literally just there a couple months ago on a Sunday or Saturday, and you couldn't go into the Pokemon Center without waiting in line for a long time. There was no place to sit down. There was no place to actually eat. Like literally, we were walking around for 30 minutes, could not even find a place to sit down. And so that's what a lot of these places like Shibuya, Ikebukuro, Sunshine City, Tokyo Skytree gets like that too. Just any big popular shopping area. The Nintendo store is another one. Like you're going to have to probably get in line and wait for a long time. Whereas I've been on a weekday and I've been able to go straight in. I was just at the Sanrio Cafe in Ikebukuro, and I was able to walk in without a reservation. If I had walked in on a Saturday or Sunday, I probably would have been waiting a long time, or maybe I could not have gotten in at all because everything was reserved. So keep that in mind. Use your weekdays wisely for the stuff that you want to do the most, if the stuff that you want to do is open on the weekdays, and then use your weekends for more of your rest days or staying outside days, or maybe going to a park or a shrine where you're not going to be crammed into shopping centers or maybe lose out on opportunities. My second tip is there is no such thing as over planning your trip. And what I mean by that is not planning so much we're like, oh, we're gonna do this on this day or this on that day. You need to have a game plan for every individual thing you want to do. For example, if you want to go to a certain anime cafe and you see it maybe advertised online or on Instagram or something, and you think, oh, well, I'm going to go to that cafe when I'm in Japan. But then you show up to that cafe and maybe you needed a reservation. Maybe you needed to go online and hold your place in line and get a number to be able to even go. I don't want you to get here and be disappointed when you can't do something because you didn't take a look at the website. What I recommend is if you see an anime cafe that's running while you're here, you need to go to collabcafe.com. This cafe, I almost tripped. This cafe has everything you need to know about the hours of the cafe, the food of the cafe, and it will send you directly to the social media or the website of the cafe with more information. And you need to look and see like, okay, is this day open to go? And just book it in advance. Don't wait until you're here. It's better to be more stressed before you come to Japan while you're planning, because you don't want to be stressed while you're here. The same goes for buses. Maybe the bus doesn't take IC cards and you only have cash and you can't board the bus. Like you just need to make sure to look up everything. When I travel, I make sure I have a game plan for everything. And also, if you're outside of Tokyo, you can't assume that like, oh, all the public transportation will line up. When you're in, even sometimes when you're in Tokyo, but when you're in these more countryside areas, maybe your bus gets to a really countryside station at 6 o'clock at night. But maybe the trains have already stopped running by then, and then you're just kind of stuck. So you have to kind of plan way in advance, like, oh, I need to actually get on a bus way earlier so that I can get to this station because it looks like the last train from this station leaves at this time. It's really easy, especially in the countryside, to get stuck somewhere, and I don't want that for anyone. My third tip is when it comes to the Japanese language, pronunciation is more important than anything else. Let's say that you go into, I'm going to go down this road. Let's say you go into a restaurant and let's say you have a reservation. Well, if you go in there and you go, yoyaku arimasu, they're not going to know what you're saying. So you might know the words and you will say them, but if you're not going to have as good intonation as you can, as good of an accent as you can, if you don't go in there being like, yoyaku arimasu, yoyaku arimasu, it doesn't have to be perfect. Trust me, mine's not, definitely. But you need to, maybe if you want to use a lot of Japanese, really work on your pronunciation. I think it's really, really important. A lot of people kind of just like study words and then they don't do the muscle memory. Like, you might know the words, but then suddenly when push comes to shove and you need to use them, you can't get them out. You don't have the muscle memory to get the words out in a correct pronunciation. So yeah, just work on your pronunciation. It's literally so important. I mean, sometimes if your pronunciation is really good, sometimes you'll get in trouble a little bit because then they'll think like you really know Japanese and they'll just like throw all these words at you that you might not know. So be careful of that, I guess. But yeah, if you come here and you're like, I'm gonna learn Japanese, you're definitely gonna want to work on your accent and your intonation, because if you go into a restaurant saying yoyaku arimasu, they will not know what you're saying, and then they'll probably try and speak English to you. And if you really want to work on your Japanese, you want them to speak Japanese to you. So yeah, work on that pronunciation. My fourth tip is sometimes the place that you're trying to find on Google Maps is not actually on the main street. It's underground. So many cities in Japan have a whole other city underground. Sapporo is a great example of this. Sapporo, I think it was Sapporo where like there's a Krispy Kreme on this road somewhere. Oh, but it's underground. So this kind of goes back to doing like extra planning. Because for example, today I went to the Sanrio Cafe and I was lost for 30 minutes, even though I've been to Ikebukuro so many times. I was totally lost because I didn't plan in advance. I looked up on Google Maps where the cafe was, and I came upon like a road like this, like just out here. And I was like, where's the cafe? I was like right at the spot on Google Maps and I could not find it. And it's because it was underground. So I spent 30 minutes trying to figure it out. So keep in mind that if you're at a spot and you're right there in Google Maps, see if there's a place in the city that's where it's underground. Because Ikebukuro is not even all that well known for having like underground facilities, but sure enough, it was in Sunshine City, underground. What you can do is you can go on the website of the place you're trying to get to, and usually they'll say like, oh, we are on B1. B1 is like usually a base floor, or sometimes in this case it was like an underground floor. Usually the websites will have all of the answers you need for the places that you want to go to. So keep that in mind. The reason why it's so important is, say you have a reservation at this cafe and they only let you take your reservation if you come within 15 minutes after your reservation time. So if you're spending half an hour after your reservation time looking for the cafe, then you miss out on your opportunity. And you know, for me, it's not a big deal. I can come down to Tokyo whenever I want. I live an hour away by train, but you might be flying in, and you like this is why when people come here for tourism, sometimes it's a once in a life chance or once in every couple years chance. So you want to make sure everything goes perfectly. So look on those websites for stores and cafes that you want to visit, and just double make sure where the location is, because if you have a reservation and you miss it while you're in Japan, you might not be able to book another one. A lot of really popular cafes like the Kirby Cafe gets booked 2 months in advance. And with that, my final tip is don't be afraid to kind of get out of Tokyo. Tokyo, there's people running, there's boys running from school. Don't be afraid to get out of Tokyo, because I mean, I just have such a love-hate relationship with Tokyo. I like coming here because there's plenty to do, lots to film, lots of shopping. It's just always so busy. if you're not used to big cities, then Tokyo can be super overwhelming. And it might not be a bad idea if you feel like you've been here for maybe a week and you feel like, I want something different. I want to see the countryside. Even though Tokyo is as big as it is, if you get on a train and take it for like 30 minutes, you're going to see those rice fields. Like, you're going to see the countryside. And for me, being in the countryside is so much more fun than being in Tokyo. It's a lot more relaxed. I also think that people do tend to be nicer in the countryside too. So yeah, I just really implore you to get out of Tokyo. If you feel like you've seen enough, you've done enough. If you're tired, go out and get in nature. Maybe do a hot spring or onsen or something like that. I think I know of a lot of people who come to Japan and then they stay in Tokyo and they don't go anywhere else. So think about it this way. Japan has a population of like a little over 100 million, right? Well, Tokyo is like a city of like, it always changes and it depends on like the radius that you're measuring. But Tokyo has a population of maybe 10 million. So like 10% of Japan, I think it's actually like 9% of Japan lives in Tokyo. So you're only experiencing like 9% of like where people live, like, you know, in Tokyo. So think about like all that you're missing if you only stay in Tokyo. So that would be what I would say, is to go to the more countryside areas. I'm like going up this hill and I'm out of shape and I'm breathing really heavily, and I'm sure someone in the comments is gonna be like, oh my god. That's my other tip, actually. Do some cardio before you come here, because it's a lot of walking. I'm walking uphill. You're gonna be walking like 20 to 30,000 steps a day, like you just are. So, and it's cheaper that way. It's cheaper to walk. Do not take the taxis. They're so expensive. All right, and with that, I hope this helped you out. I hope you enjoyed this walk and talk. Hope you got to see a little bit of the Ikebukuro / Otsuka area as the sun's going down. Really interesting area. I'm glad it's quiet now. But anyway, guys, if you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the comments. I really try to read and respond to every comment. I'm gonna go sit down after walking for so long up this hill. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.